prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value. But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
This is Sales Logic.
This is Sales Logic, and you know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning. It's my favorite time of the week. It is time for Sales Logic, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to sell more effectively in today's marketplace. Apologize about my voice today. I'm a little under the weather, but Mark, I'm hanging out with you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We got a great show. We're going to be talking about how do we draw the fine line between accountability and micromanagement. Regardless if you're a sales leader or a salesperson, this is a show that you need to be paying attention to. And the lightning round, top 10 ways to boost your confidence. Oh man, we can always use that. So let's jump into this. The fine line between accountability and micromanagement. Ooh, I've stepped over both.
You know, I thought this was such a, thought it was such an interesting topic this week because you got to deal with it like you might be doing it as a leader, but you also might be suffering under it. And Mark, I thought today we could really discuss, you know, both sides of it. Let's start with the leader. I mean, how do you blend or navigate or balance the line between micromanaging but still holding people accountable? I mean, you're responsible for what they do. Your neck's on the line. How do you do that without micromanaging people?
Well, it's hard because you can delegate, but you cannot abdicate. And that's a difficult piece because you want to empower your people. You want to lift them up, but you are the one that's accountable for it. It's your number at the end of the quarter. And, you know, it comes back to the whole deal. When do you jump in to save the deal? When do you not? When do you tell the person you got to do this or not do that? It's a fine line. And I think it also just depends on what side of the bed you woke up on in the morning. Because, I mean, I'm guilty of that. I can remember many times when I was leading an organization that I would micromanage somebody because I was pissed off at something else. And this was something I could control. Not a good situation.
So is there ever an okay time to micromanage somebody?
Well, yes, there is. I mean, when you're down to week 13 of the quarter and you're day 4 of the quarter and you've got like 3 hours to get those orders in or it's not going to happen. You're right. We micromanage. I've done my fair share of week 13 micromanaging. The challenge is, when do you let it go? Because again, are you letting it go to generate business that you need today? In other words, I'm going to micromanage today, or do I let it go to try to allow the salesperson to develop themselves? And again, that's a fine line. I don't know. I'd be curious. What are some things you can share?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think number one, you got to be careful of micromanagement because you'll drive really good players out the door. So I think number one, as a leader, you really need to ask yourself, are you leading everybody the same way? And if you're leading everybody on your team the same way, chances are you're micromanaging people that don't need to be micromanaged. I do think there are times to micromanage. If I'm brand new for your team, even though I'm a really good salesperson, if I went to work for Mark tomorrow, he needs to micromanage me because I don't know how to sell on his team. I don't know who the prospect is. I don't know what the roadmap is. He's got to spend a lot of time with me and stay on top of me to make sure I'm doing it right. If I was underperforming, if I'm not hitting the numbers, then he needs to micromanage me to figure out if he's got a discipline issue or a skill issue and the best way to coach me. But I think that, I think as a leader, then you need to basically look at where people are according to get results. So I will micromanage somebody who isn't getting results. I'll sort of medium manage somebody who's getting okay results but not consistently hit their goal, and I'll focus more on reward and recognition and challenge with somebody who is hitting their goal consistently.
Now, that brings up a good point because you're right. I'm not going to micromanage the top performer. However, there may be some things that the top performer is just now taking on, a new responsibility. So you do need to micromanage in those situations, and you need to be upfront with them. Hey, for right now, I know this is new for you. So you and I are going to kind of work closely together on this just to help get you up to speed. So you do have to kind of let them know this is what you're doing. So there's a time when you're micromanaging the person, and there's a time when you're micromanaging the activity. But if you're doing this, the activity, you got to let them know that you're focused more on the activity. And as soon as they obtain a certain level of performance, you're going to let loose. You're going to let them go back. But again, that low performer, why are you having to micromanage them? Maybe you should just cut them loose.
And that's where I think you need to figure out if it's a skill issue or a discipline issue, and that's why everybody who works for you ought to be reporting on behaviors on a weekly basis so that you have a good idea as to where and how they're spending your time. I got a question the other day from a sales leader, who was worried she didn't want to micromanage, but she wanted to make sure that her team wasn't goofing off. And that is always a red flag for me, that the manager really needs to think about something. If you're trying to manage people's time, you're going to go crazy. You need to manage to the result, both behaviors and numbers. I mean, as long as I'm doing what Mark asked me to do, it's fine that I make a phone call at 1:00 in the afternoon that's personal. If I'm exceeding my goals, if I've got a person on my team that is exceeding their goals, I don't care when they work. I just want them to get the job done. I relax about it. If they're not, I'm far more involved and far more dictatorial about what they're doing.
Yeah, now that brings up an interesting point, because there are times when you do have to kind of micromanage the action, because you may have a situation. I was doing a coaching call today where the salesperson is very much struggling with some basic communication elements. And I kind of had to micromanage them. I said, you're not going to get to the next level until you address that. So I'm micromanaging. Overall, the salesperson turns in some pretty good results, very good results. But you still have to kind of micromanage those individual activities. And again, that's understanding. One of the ways that I love to do is I just love to ask questions. Hey, how are you coming on that? What are some of the things that you've picked up, or some things that you've learned from the project that you're working on, or that customer that you're talking to? I love asking questions, because that's how you're going to find out how well they're in tune on it. And it's a way to kind of inspect without having to probe deep, or shall I say, dig in and tell me what's going on, exactly what's going on. No, it's a lighter way.
Yeah, I love what you said before about the fact of letting somebody know why you're micromanage them. That is if I show up every single Monday and I ask Mark what he's doing, and then I do it again on Tuesday and I do it again on Wednesday, he's irritated with me. But if I say to Mark, look, I think you have a really great future here. I just want to get you off on the right track. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time with you in the next couple of days, asking you how you're building your day, just so we can get the right process in place. It's a completely different conversation.
It is. And that's coming back to keeping the picture on the big goal. In other words, if the person understands why you're doing this, why you're talking with them, why you're working with them, it's to help prepare you for the next position. It's to help get you ready for X, Y, or Z. Or, hey, if we can work through this account and get this account developed, I know I'm going to be able to get some other accounts turned over to you that you're going to really excel in. Again, letting them see what the prize is and what the benefit is there. But, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, so well said. I mean, basically include them in the process, make them a part of it. I also, when people are underperforming and I micromanage them, one of my favorite things to do is say, the best way to get rid of me is to exceed your goal. If you exceed your goal, we become partners, right? And in some respect, I'm learning from you as much as you're learning from me. So if you don't like being micromanaged, then exceed your goals.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great time to bring in the question we got. Came to us this week by way of Spotify. Philippe says, hey, I've started in a new job in mid-February for introduction of a new product in the market, and I have to work closely with a coworker who is the team leader of the project. We both report to the same boss. My colleague is calling me every day to ask my plan for the day. If I have a certain visit with a customer planned, how many projects I've created, I don't mind being accountable, but I feel like I'm not being productive because I'm being micromanaged. What do you think?
Ooh, I think you are being micromanaged.
Yeah.
I think this is a classic case of it. I wonder though if your partner's intentions are bad, and I really doubt that. I think she's probably very fearful and really nervous. And I think when it comes to working and collaborating with people, it's important to know their personality styles. You know, it's funny. I just started a new podcast with my sister, and my sister's about as opposite from me as we can be. We're very close, but very different. And she has a high need to know information before she moves. I have a need to know zero information before I move. We're about as opposite. But in working with her, understanding when she's questioning, when she's on top of things, it is, it feels micromanaged to me, but she's really doing it for herself to make herself feel comfortable.
That brings up a good point, because there are people who you like working with, but there are people you would not want to work for. And that's a little bit what this Philippe situation is all about, because again, you're working with somebody, but it almost feels like you're having to work for them because they're micromanaging. This whole thing. The key is, like you and your sister on this podcast, as long as you both keep your eye on what the end prize is, what's the end goal? Where are we trying to go with this? You're going to be successful. And in time, you're going to figure out, and of course you know each other well, you've known each other for life, in terms of what motivates, what drives each other. And that comes back to something. The whole thing of accountability versus micromanagement. It's amazing how it impacts your level of motivation. I've been micromanaged, and believe me, it's shut down my motivation. On the other hand, I've been given a tremendous amount of leeway, and it increases my level of motivation and in turn productivity. But it's understanding the individual person you're leading, and each person's different. Wow.
Well, I think I think for Philippe, I think this is worth a conversation with your coworker. And I think it's to best say that, and I think, to be honest, is to say, I want to get this project on track. I want to keep it on track, and I want to be successful with you with it. Let's talk about some of the agreements of the best way to work together. And you'll find out from them, like, you need to understand what makes your partner tick and what's important to them. It may just be that they have so much anxiety over this project, they want to know at every moment that the project's on track. And maybe there's another way you can do that.
It comes back to having clarity of the goals. What are the goals? What is it that we actually want to get to? One of the things that I tell every sales manager to do, every Monday morning, you've got to be sharing with the team, what are your goals? What are your objectives for the week? And the idea being is that each of your people will do the same thing. In other words, everybody's understanding what everybody's doing. And the way you hold people accountable is that you, the sales manager, come back to them Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning at the latest, and you're kind of reviewing with them one-on-one how you're doing on yours, and they're reviewing with you how they're doing on theirs. The reason I like Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning is there's still time left in the week. There's still time left in the week to make adjustments. But what this does is it allows a level of accountability, because the salesperson owns the process, but they're participating because you're in it with them. You're going through the same process with them. And it allows you to micromanage without micromanaging. Because again, it allows you ultimately Friday afternoon to get to where you want to be. Too much micromanagement occurs because we don't see results happening. So then we have to, drop in and save the world. Oh, you know what? If you're doing the right steps along the way, it's amazing how you don't have to do that.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Philippe here is, and I think for anybody being micromanaged in their job, I would go to my boss and get really, really, really clear on what the goal is. Like, what is success going to look like for them? What is it that they need from you? And before they try to manage you on a daily basis, try to be proactive around that. Maybe give them a status update on a regular basis. Kind of keep them in the loop as to what's working and what's progressing and how things are moving before they have an ability to jump on you and what feels like waste your time with asking you so many questions.
Yeah, it's interesting. Micromanagement styles, it's amazing how they start up on high. And I've been part of organizations that Up at the top, there's a high level of micromanaging, and it just cascades downhill. And by the time you get down to the bottom, most people can't breathe. And there's a tremendous amount of turnover. I'll tell you what, when I see an organization dealing with a lot of turnover, undoubtedly there's micromanaging happening. And the micromanaging is occurring because of two things. The leaders are not strong enough themselves. They are not strong enough themselves. And two, they're undoubtedly hiring the wrong people. Well, gee, if you don't have the right managers, you're not going to be able to hire great people. So it very simply, if you want to have a high degree of accountability, you have to be willing to accept the fact that you thrive, you work best with a high degree of accountability, and I can just get the job done.
So if you feel that if you're listening to this right now and you're a manager who's being micromanaged, how do you think you begin to turn that around?
Well, how you do is you got to be proactive back to them and just send them updates. I mean, I remember one boss in particular I had. He micromanaged me, and I hated it. And so what I just got happened was I just had to make sure that I was letting him know this is exactly where we're at and kind of status updates. I just called them kind of daily status updates. And after a while, it just kind of began to dial down. But don't try to fight it. Don't try to fight. If you're being micromanaged, if you're going to try to fight it, you might as well leave. But my suggestion is you just do regular status updates. That's what I would share with Philippe. And this is really what you got to do is you got to have status updates between them. And then over time, people become more comfortable and it frees up more space.
Yeah, I think Philippe, you can also go to your partner and say, look, what do you need from me in order to feel comfortable that I'm staying on track? Like, what do you need from me in order to do that and really try to get out from under it? Let me ask you the flip of that. So if you're listening to this right now and you think you're a boss who's micromanaging, what do you need to do to unwind that?
To what? Unwind the manager?
Yeah. No. You as the manager, you suspect you're listening to us, and now all of a sudden you're a micromanager, and understandably, you're next on the line.
And well, it is. This is where you got to come back to. This is, I think, the weekly process of what are the activities we're working on, and then you just have a regular update that Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, and you just get yourself into a routine process. Micromanagement drives people nuts when it's the sudden, if I work for you, Mayor, and you suddenly call me. Half an hour later, you call me again. You ping me again. That just drives me crazy. Let's just make it regular updates on a regular time frame. And then eventually what happens is we get a calmness and it kind of goes away.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know that I've ever been micromanaged in my entire life. I've usually had bosses who've gone the other way. They've let go of me and they haven't really paid very much attention at all. I can't recall anywhere I've ever worked in my life where I've been under somebody's thumb. And the thing about that is neither style is very good, right? Like being ignored and not getting the information and the tools that you need in order to be successful has as much negative impact as staying on top of somebody too much.
Yeah, I had one boss that micromanaged me tremendously. Sidney Lee, I believe he's passed away, so I can say his name. Anyway, I was so unmotivated working for him because he believed on every sales call, every word of every piece of marketing material needed to be read to every customer. I mean, but really what it came down to was he was weak. He was a very weak manager. And he was just trying to check the boxes for his boss. I mean, he was so far out over his skis, wasn't even funny. But as a result, he was demotivating all of us. And believe me, nobody put in fewer hours working than I did when I worked for him.
Yeah. It makes me think of one time I think I was a little bit micromanaged. I had back in the day when you used to do a light board and put the newsletter up on the light board and put the newsletter together, I used to have a boss that no matter what I did with the newsletter, he would correct it. And he never gave it back to me to fix. He just corrected it. And in all of it, I mean, he would completely rewrite everything I did. And I just got to the point where I would just send in crap. I didn't care what it was. Like, I just didn't care because I knew it wasn't going to make it into the newsletter anyway. And I think about that a lot, Mark, because I think, you look at you and you look at me, we're very type A, very disciplined people. And if you can suck the life out of us, Imagine what micromanagement is doing to the average individual.
Well, this is why there's such a high percentage of employees who are completely disengaged. Uh, Micromanagement begins up on top, begins at the top of the food chain, and that may be the sales manager, it may be the director of sales, maybe the VP of sales, maybe wherever. But I mean, I have seen it in so many organizations that I'm asked to come in. Maybe I speak at them or I'm doing consulting with them, and it's unbelievable, the struggles, and they never achieve a high degree of success. Hey, time is moving along. We got to get to the book, because we got a great book from our good friend Mike Weinberg, Sales Management Simplified. Boy, is that a perfect book?
I know it is the perfect book for it, because if you really want to understand how to lead people effectively, have your fingers on it and not get too in the weeds with people, but still be sure that when your boss looks you in the eye and says, why are the numbers here? You can respond to it. This is the book for you.
Well, and it comes back to really understanding the clarity of the goals. If there's clarity of the goals and the process with which we're going to accept to be able to achieve them, then back off and let it go. And New Sales Simplified, kind of the best term in there is, you as a sales leader do not want to be a spreadsheet jockey. Mike Weinberg, I give you all the credit for coming up with that term. Okay, you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
Lightning round, top 10 ways to boost your confidence. Go.
Number one is you need to set aside time every single day to learn. If it's only 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but work on building your own knowledge base.
2, make sure that you keep a list right there by your desk, by your phone, your car, whatever, of the successes that you've had with customers.
Yeah. I think to build your confidence is to go ahead and move, like just make progress and learn to be okay with failure. Like instead of like reframing, it's, I guess what I really mean, instead of focusing on the fact that, maybe it wasn't, I'm thinking about a keynote I did, brand new keynote. Maybe it wasn't my best performance ever, but I designed a completely new keynote and really good content. Focus on the positive instead of the negative, and focus on the progress.
So true. So many times we indwell on what we think went wrong, and it's not. The downside that we think we have is not nearly as severe as what really people are seeing on the outside.
Yeah. Number 5, do the tough things first. Do something every day that pushes you a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Number 6, don't hang out with negative people. Do not. You can't afford to hang out with negative people. You've only got to be putting into your community positive optimists.
Yeah. Number 7, I would say work on your physical health. The better that you feel physically, the more confident you're going to be.
Number 8, that comes down to having a routine. You get disciplined in your routine. I've never met a top performer who is not extremely routine focused.
Yeah, and I'm going to take this one from our friend Dave Sanderson that I think he took from Dan Sullivan. But focus on the gain, not the gap. Focus on how far you've come, not what you're missing.
I love that. Number 10, if you're struggling with confidence, at the end of every week, write down your number 1 success for the week, whatever it was. And you do that every week. And then when you're feeling down, all you do is look back through previous pages and realize, wow, I did this. And it's amazing how your own previous success will boost your confidence. Hey, we should mention about the Sales Logic Expert Exchange, right?
Yeah, we've got Carson Heedy coming up. Oh my God, he is so good. If you do not know Carson, you got to tune into. It's the 4th Monday of the month, 4:00 Eastern. Mark your calendar right now. He is not only a brilliant sales story, but he's got a brilliant salesman, but he's got a great story behind him that will motivate, inspire you to do the impossible, and that's take action.
And that's the thing. Each month we have a new expert who comes on and shares. Just go to saleslogicpodcast.com. See on the website. And you'll see right there where you can get signed up and join us the 4th Monday of each month. With that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Something we've said has earned you a single dollar. Consider telling a friend about our show, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. We'll see you right back here next week, 8 a.m. Eastern, for another episode of Sales Logic.